So my second topic today was just about the election in general, or politics in general, but specifically we have a mildly profiled election coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's ripe within the school, but it's also difficult. It puts teachers in a difficult spot, particularly social studies teachers who are teaching politics and elections in their courses.
So,
I didn't explain that at all, did I?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think there's more attention in the school maybe to this election than past elections? Because I wasn't in high school when the 2012 election happened. So I remember in middle school, though, it was kind of a thing, and we talked about it in history class, we wrote papers about it, but it wasn't everyone really adamant about their position. And I feel like now to hear everyone at school talking about their position on this election and who's right, who's wrong,
I'd agree with you 100%. It might be the most discussed election that I have ever encountered in my teaching career.
Interesting. And even people who can't even vote, they're really interested in it.
Right, and I would say that students who, from just quick snapshot profile of them in the hallway, who I would think not probably interested in politics and elections, I hear all students talking about this election and their position on candidates and issues, and it's frequently discussed.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, though. I think it's a good thing that everyone's aware.
I'm all for civic engagement. It just, the climate, whatever party you're a member of or candidate you support or issue you're passionate about, it would be hard to argue against the fact that we have a very divisive political climate in the country. And then I personally don't feel like there is a lot of compromise or attempt at consensus making with politicians, even with sort of students in the building.
Right.
And I think that we meaning teachers have to contribute to that skill in some way. It's a skill just like any other skill.
What was the official policy, the school board policy, about discussing politics in class as teachers that don't teach social studies?
So there's sort of two school board policies that relate to it. It's in terms of politics and elections, you can't, Mr. Glover couldn't come in with a Donald Trump T-shirt and wear it throughout the school. Though teachers are not allowed to advocate for a particular candidate, which includes having a bumper sticker on your car or just a sticker on your laptop. In a classroom, you are supposed to present all candidates equally. So, for instance, the senior government teachers, their classes sort of collapsed together, are dealing with all candidates and a selection of issues. The other school board policy that's relevant is about controversial issues. So the school board recognizes that controversial issues can be engaging, but again, they request that presentation and discussion be fair and balanced amongst all of the sides. So it's very reasonable, it's a rational approach, but in the context of how divisive the political world is, sometimes it's hard, for students, but you have the leeway of being, but it's for a teacher, it's always maintaining that line is very difficult.
Yeah. So was there one big question you were going to ask for this topic, or have we covered it?
It was just sort of this idea. I got at the very beginning of the year, I told kids, I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for, and I'm still not going to do that. Because it's not pertinent to anything.
Right.
But I hear students ask teachers. I'd be curious if Mr. Glover's been asked about who he's going to vote for.
I have not been directly asked, but there's a climate where a student will kind of ask me more generalized questions about stuff that's been going on the election trail, as if to kind of figure out where I feel, how I feel about specific topics. And I'll be honest, it's very hard not to instinctively respond with my personal viewpoint. So I would say for me, like in general, I'm trying to, even though I don't like to push debate and push the conversation outside of my classroom, I definitely have been kind of heading there just because of, like you said, how divisive it is. It's a very, the climate's very divisive and people are very passionate about it. Now in like hoof print, it's the same thing. I'm like in journalism, I'm having students engage in a debate there as opposed to like a TV production class or an audio production class. And for that class specifically, it's much more about, like you said, it's about achieving a balance. But as far as like a student I haven't had a student directly ask me who I'm voting for yet. No, that has not happened. And if it did happen, I would have to say, I can't tell you, but
you can't disclose who you're going to vote for. Is that in the policy, or you just don't want to?
I don't know if it's specifically in the policy where it says that I can't tell you who I'm going to vote for. Mm-hmm. But I think that reading between the lines, it's implied.
Okay.
I would say the same thing for me. If a student knows me, I'm pretty sure they would know who I'm leaning towards.
Well, see, that's the great thing about me is that students have a very hard time. And they're constant, like Mr. Glover, I get bombarded with sort of generalized topical questions to try to figure it out. And I've made it my quest to be as vanilla as possible in my responses.
So you're like a politician.
Exactly. Exactly. But I would say that so an election like this, which is divisive, but is also very engaging.
Right.
And so one of the great activities that I could put you through as my student is to ask you to go to the other side. So you have a side, go to the other side and figure out their argument and figure out how you could argue for that argument. As uncomfortable as that would make you,
a lot of people
cognitive
don't do that.
Dissonance that it would create within you, it's an amazing activity to be able to do that with an issue that is. And so, I could do that with the election of 1816 and James Monroe, but that's inherently not as engaging because it's not immediately contextual and current to your life. That's sort of a balance that, I have to, I can get excited about the election of 1816. I know Mr. Schaefer can, but getting, how do we figure out how to get our students? And so it may be that we try to draw a parallel, to the current election, but I'm always leery of, does that open a Pandora's box that I can't get out of?
It's true.
And then do I get a parent phone call or an email? Right. Does Dr. Turner get that? Does Superintendent Pam Moran get that? And then suddenly, John Barron is on the hot seat because, it seems like, he's advocating for this or that in his classroom. So it's a tightrope that I feel like I'm walking every day that I have class. So, and then you've had 2 debates. We have one coming up this week, and I'll have my class the day after the debate, and they'll be talking about it. They will be, and it'll be like the IS Lab. It'll be talked about all day for days, and so I have to sort of navigate that world. If I were to advocate for one candidate or issue, I could instantly turn off one or a whole group of kids that I'm supposed to work with for 4 years and who, I want to build trust so that when I, advise them on classes or do college app stuff, and if that can sort of turn them away from me, well, then I've lost that student, and I can't make an impact in that way. So that always sort of is in my mind